Hello, my loves. My name is Leanne Aligned. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if this is your first time here. I have a new microphone. I'm hoping it's good. I'm sure you'll let me know. Today, I'm excited to share with you 6 decks that I've been using a lot this summer. I'm someone who uses, I call it all of my decks all of the time. That is humanly impossible, of course, but I do just intuitively select which deck I want to work with at any given moment. For myself, for clients, I'm very intuitively based that way. But there are decks that, as I work with things over a season, they tend to come up and repeat, and I revisit them over and over again. And these are the decks that I like to bring into kind of my seasonal roundup. So I have 3 Oracle decks and 3 Tarot decks to share with you today. So for those of you who are only in one camp and not the other, there's something here for you. And those of you like me who love both, you're going to love this video. So little preview of those there. If I show you them in this manner, they will be backwards, and we don't want that. So I'm going to flip you around and share with you the decks I've been really enjoying using so far this summer. Let's go. All right, my loves, let's talk about our first deck. And you're going to notice a lot of these decks are already out of the box because they're just out on my desk. So this is the Starcodes Astro Oracle. And this is just an amazing kind of all-around deck. I don't know why I'm putting this back in the box. It's an amazing all-around reader. I've been using it not only for myself, but also for clients. There we go. Couldn't think of the word. It's really interesting as I continue to learn more about astrology and the archetypes to be able to pull on that knowledge from what I do understand. But I do feel that this deck is enough with just the keywords and the stunning imagery for me to be able to read it just as like a regular oracle deck and not have to actually like look at the astrological information. I, of course, love the bright colors for summer. This is very like, it feels cosmic, but earthy in a way. And I think that's due to all the plants. It feels dreamy with the watercolor. It feels abstract because of these types of illustrations. But then you get these illustrations where it's like the mountains and trees and animals. And I just really, really enjoy this deck. As with many of my decks, I go through periods where I don't reach for this very often. And then all of a sudden I become like obsessed with it again. And I love when that happens because those are the decks that you know are just going to be around in your collection for a long time. Because even if you're not like quote unquote ride or die, like using it all the time, it creates such impact and value that you return to it again and again and get this kind of newfound joy when you start working with it again, as if it was like your first time with the deck. So really enjoying this, and I'm just now realizing that the lighting in this video is probably not great because my lens is probably dirty. So let's fix that. I'm not sure if that's any better, but hopefully you were able to see those cards. I have learned if I reach for perfection, you'll never get this video. So thank you for bearing with me. This next deck is a deck that I love to hate or hate to love. This is the Happy Tarot. This is one of those decks that it's an RWS clone. This is the back. And it's not really my aesthetic. Like, you know, those decks where you're like, I shouldn't love this, and I don't even really necessarily like that I love this, but there's something about it that's just, it's a happy tarot. It's lighthearted. it speaks to you in a way that's like really clear. I feel the voice of this tarot deck is very clear. Like she doesn't pull any punches. She's really gentle in the deliverance of the message, but you're never confused. She's very quick to have like a conversation with you, but also not shy away from maybe some of the harder messages that you need to hear. Even though all of these illustrations are like of what looks like kids, I love that it brings in that childlike wonder element that makes some of these cards more lighthearted, but they don't change the imagery. Like these kids are clearly in conflict, which is the meaning of the Five of Wands, right? It is a conflict card. And then here we have death, and it's like clearly death's like playing, you know, and they're pretending to be dead, but like you still get the same imagery. The Four of Cups is one that I think about with this as well. And there's just something so innocent and lighthearted about this deck. And if you know anything about my deck collection, most of my decks are like dark, spooky, serious, shadow work, like deep esoteric mystery, like Scorpio heaven. And this deck is literally like the exact opposite of everything else I own, and is the exact opposite pretty much of the Haunted House Tarot, which is the deck that I have used the most. It is my top deck for the past 2 years, pretty much. I'll be going on 2 years in a couple of months. So the deck that I've been using a lot, that I love, hate to love, love to hate, but it really is a fun deck. And I didn't really talk about the guidebook for either of those decks because it's not something that I've really sat with. It's not a feature of the deck that I use a lot. Those are decks that I use more just for what they are. But there are 3 decks coming up that I have like used the guidebook for. So next, let's go to another tarot deck. This is a deck that, again, I don't really use the guidebook for because you don't need it, due to the fact that it is an RWS deck. I am at a point in my tarot journey where I'm more interested in exploring cards that have depictions that are different than what you typically see in terms of spending my time with those guidebooks. Right now, that's not to say there aren't amazing guidebooks to go with the more traditionally expressed decks, but like for this, for instance, the Eight of Wands, I haven't really looked at what this Eight of Wands means, quote unquote, in the particular guidebook that goes with this deck, but I'm obsessed with this Eight of Wands because it's so different than everything else we usually see. And especially with the Eight of Wands, that's like unheard of, right? And I love this like idea of the chaotic fast action. I hope that makes sense. Any whoosies. I love this deck, especially in the summer. I've like spoken at length about this deck on my channel. If you want to see, I spent an entire month with this deck last summer and fell head over heels. And there's just something so beautiful about, again, this same idea as the Starcodes Oracle. Excuse me, I've been talking a lot today. Starcodes Oracle, where it's super earthy. It actually has a little bit of that happy tarot playfulness. Now that I'm like looking at it, you have animals, but it also feels grown up, right? This doesn't feel like the happy tarot. This feels like actually a beautiful blend of those 2 decks. And I never thought about that until this moment, but it's bright, it's colorful, it's elemental, it's earthy. I like this vibe because in the summer, that's when I get to really get outside and like enjoy landscape. I live in the US in the state of Maine. We have all 4 seasons, and our longest season is winter. So when the snow finally melts and it warms up, it's like warm from like the middle of June to like mid-September. That's like chef's kiss. That's my summer. As long as our seasons don't play tricks with us, which does happen sometimes. But it just embodies that vibe to me of like actually being able to like wear less clothing and be outside and let the sun like touch your skin and really be connected to the earth and the greenery. And to me, this is really when I feel like my connection to nature, to all that is in my witchy practice, really thrives, because I'm actually able to like get out there and like commune with nature. And there's something just so beautiful about how this deck embodies that. And I'm pretty obsessed with the way that they have done the animals to go with the people in this deck. We're not substituting animals for humans, and we're also not being super strict on what a human looks like. There are characters in here where you're like, wow, they look a little like out of this world, you know? And the animals in it really come in to assist as spirit guides, and it as guides within the cards. And yeah, it just, to me, it is the embodiment of being a witch in the summertime. Can you tell I love this deck? Because I'm pretty sure I spent the longest on that one so far. This is the White Newman Tarot. Highly recommend. I'll leave everything linked below that I can. If you do purchase through that link, there are affiliate links. They support the channel. I make like 2 cents. Thank you for your support, but I don't link them to make money. I link them because nobody likes trying to find the right deck after seeing it. It's just easier to click the link. All right, we're going to finish out with the tarot, and then we'll move into the other 2 oracle decks. So this is the Starman Tarot by David DeAngelis. Now, I want to clarify something that I did. I got this deck in a trade. This wasn't really on my radar. I didn't do a lot of research. I'm not familiar with the music and life of David Bowie. Just not something I've spent time exposed to. And if I didn't know anything about this deck, I would assume that I would have to know those things, because that seems to be how it's presented online. But I want to let you know that this deck doesn't really have anything to do with David Bowie, from what I can tell. This deck is created by the artist who did the artwork for David Bowie, but they aren't linked together, if that makes any sense. So, with that in mind, I am obsessed with this deck as a study deck. This isn't a deck that I'm pulling out like my happy tarot at the end of the day to like get fun readings, right? There's different ways that I interact with my decks. This could be a whole other video. If you're interested in that, let me know and maybe I'll put that on the thing. But when I'm like reading my tarot without the guidebook, I'm having a conversation, we're having a story, and I'm laying out like card after card after card after card after I like interpret, ask a question, and have a conversation with the deck. The Starman Tarot is not a deck that I am doing that with. I hope to one day get to that level with this deck, but this is more of a deck that you pull 1, 2, 3 cards if you're really feeling ambitious, and take time looking at the guidebook for. This is also a deck where if I've pulled another card, say I've pulled a card for myself here, the Six of Cups from this deck, like for a daily draw or something. And I'm like, actually, you know what? I'd really love to sink my teeth into some different interpretations than I'm usually used to of the Six of Cups. Then I might pull out, well, then I would pull out, but this would be one of the decks that I would pull out to pull out the card and look at the guidebook to sink my teeth deeper into another way of looking at that card. That's really how I'm liking using guidebooks these days, is when I'm feeling in that mode, like I want something more than what I already have accumulated in the knowledge of my brain and the understanding. If I want a different perspective, then I have certain decks like this that are meatier, or that I really like the way that the person has written the guidebook for, that I will pull out to just help me study in that way. Hopefully that makes sense. This is a very busy deck. As you can see, again, we have another theme, bright colors. And there's something about this deck that feels study-ish, but in a playful way. There are other decks that I have to study that feel much more like serious, where you're like really sitting down and doing like deep esoteric work. I'm thinking like the Nameless One tarot, where you're like sitting down with the intent of like learning mythology and all these things to incorporate into like ritual work, and it has a very serious academic tone to it. This has like an etheric, lighthearted, super playful tone to it that still touches on that like weird and odd aspect that I love so much. This deck is definitely not for everyone, which is how it ended up in my hands. Actually, to my understanding, this deck went through 2 owners before it made its way to me, and I'm so grateful to have the chance to work with it. And again, while I do enjoy the cards, and especially the court cards in this deck, the court cards are really great. But anyway, as much as I enjoy the artwork in this deck, I am obsessed with this guidebook. It's so good. This is one of those decks where you can tell that the person who put this together actually, like, this is a decades long piece of work. Like, they didn't crank this out in a year for a publisher just to make a deck. This is like a deck that someone took their time on, channeled artwork, made it like exactly right, actually knew what the F they were talking about when they wrote the guidebook, past like, you know, a year of studying the cards. That's a whole rant in itself for another time. But I love this guidebook. I love that when you open up to a page, you have a phrase. So 2 of Swords says, I trust my abilities. Princess of Pentacles, I value all the life. It does have the quartz named the same way that the Thoth system does. The Moon, I perceive the truth through the inner veil and its reflection. I mean, can we just... So you get a good amount of information, but it's not just talking about... The 2 of Swords means indecision, right? If we look here, it says, make 2 of Swords, make a wise choice, take the path of the heart, despite challenges, consider what decisions and choices you have made in life, reversed fear, failure, etc., etc. Like, it gives you the general meaning and concepts. But the author actually goes into the larger abstract concept of real-world application of the card, and will often couple that with the story of why they chose to do the artwork in this way, or just of a real life story that has to do with the meaning of the card itself. To my recollection, don't quote me on this, but this guidebook is written in collaboration between the artist and another woman, which dare I say is the wife, but I could be thinking of a totally different deck. This spring I was really into, oh gosh, Brian Froud's Fairies Oracle. And that deck guidebook is written by husband and wife. So I could be incorrect, but I know that the artist for sure had a hand in writing this guidebook because it's in there when you read it. So I'm obsessed because it's philosophical but grounded. Like, it's real world shit, but like from a zoomed out scope, but it's so specific at the same time. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, moving on. That's the Starman Tarot. Next, let's talk about another like deck that you sink your teeth into in a slow way, and then we'll end with a lighthearted deck. So this is the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck by Kim Kranz. This deck is super popular, I think, because the mini's out. I don't know. But anyway, I have been obsessed with this deck this year. I didn't get it this year, but this year I've been particularly obsessed with it. And I think that's because I've been doing a lot of inner work. I mean, this is my hermit year. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can calculate based on your birth date your tarot card of the year, and it shows you kind of the internal lessons that you'll be working with and learning that year. If you want more information about that, I have a free guide that you can download to calculate your card of the year and work with it. And I'll leave that linked below. Again, it's totally free. But this is my hermit year. So I've been doing a lot of just like inner work, and my card work has really taken a turn this year from doing day-to-day card readings, which I was doing a lot in previous years, where like every day I had like my white Newman deck and I was like shuffling multiple times a day and like asking different questions and using, that to learn and to navigate and to figure out how to continue to deepen my trust of my intuition and the way that I'm going. But this year I have a much slower practice. I'm not pulling cards. No, I can't say that. I'm pulling cards most days still, but the texture of the readings are different. I'm really looking more at big scope energies than I am at like nitty gritty, what do I need to know about tomorrow? Although I still do those readings if I'm feeling like if I have something to do the next day, usually that involves people that I want some guidance around on how to approach, I'll still do that. But I digress. For my own personal like card work of like looking internally with this hermit theme, I've really been focusing more on archetypes and just internal alchemy and things of that nature. And this particular deck of the archetypes has been really beautiful, especially because there are so many archetypes in this particular deck, and it allows for a much more nuanced reading, I feel. I really love to pull about 3 cards from this deck and see how they work together, especially since some of the cards deal more with places, or like here we have the offering, the castle, and the king. Isn't that funny? The offering, the castle, and the king. That you can read together because it's not 3 archetypes. Like you don't have king, queen, shaman. You have like places and things that you're doing to like interact with things. But it's in a very philosophical way that's still zoomed in on something, and it gives you a reading that you just don't normally get from other decks. in my opinion. And I have also been using the what is it called? It's the alchemy version of this deck. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm off of camera. My apologies. Hopefully that wasn't for many of the cards. I have been using the alchemy version of this deck, but I didn't make the list because I'm using it less than this one. But yeah, I really enjoy this. The only other Kim Krans deck that I had before I got these two decks was the Animal Oracle, and I really took a big old bird poop all over that one because we didn't get along. I didn't like what she did with the guidebook. I hated the card stock. It was a whole thing. But I do have to say the guidebook in this one and in the alchemy deck are good. And this cardstock is way better. It's like easy to shuffle, it's smooth, it's thin but durable, and I really enjoy the feel of using this deck. And the guidebook doesn't give you a ton to go off of, but I really do enjoy like the 3 keywords that you get off the top. I don't really care for this extra bits on the side, but I'll usually read these keywords and then let my eye land on like a specific phrase and kind of use that to digest on my own. And I really enjoy this deck. Last but not least, this is my purchase of the year. I pre-ordered this. I'm obsessed with this deck. And this is kind of in the same lighthearted vein as the Happy Tarot. This is a Cowgirls and Aliens deck. And this deck, again, deals more with that archetypal energy. And you can use it as like an everyday reader. But because it is more with the archetypes, it's not really a deck that you like pull multiple cards from. This is one that I'll just pull for like one card at the end of the night just to see, for like a lighthearted message for fun to like keep up my nightly routine. But I have been enjoying the archetypes because they're all different. Like this is the telepath, the highwayman, the clones, the undertaker, the gunslinger, the horsewoman, mountain woman, scientist. So when you pull the card, just having that archetype name alone gives you something to go off of. It has these fun, punchy colors. It's super funky and like, it's just so fun. I really enjoy things that deal with like cosmic alien energy, but I also really love this like Western archetype. My husband is very much like that cowboy archetype. He loves walking around with his cowboy hat, and like it's just funny to interact with kind of these two different sides of my life of like this more playful Western, very like earthy, grounded vibes, and the more etheric, funky, alien, cosmic vibes. It's just so fun to see put together. And it's done in a very, very playful and tasteful way. The edges are awesome. This deck, it's just fun, right? The way that I'm able to use this, I do get deeper readings from it if I'm going to look at the archetype itself in the context of maybe some tarot cards that I pull with it or whatever else is going on. But I'm not getting deep esoteric wisdom from the guidebook. I do like that there's a story for each card and then you get a little divination message and some tips, but this is really more like surface level, lighthearted, like you're not super esoteric, but you like cards. That's kind of the vibe of this deck. And I'm not saying that to like dig the deck, like as in say it's bad, but I do think it's important to note when sharing about decks and looking at decks, because often we assume that there will be, or at least I often assume there will be sort of this like more mystical veil to it, and this leans more like fun personal development, but because of how it's done, you're able to use it either way. Does that make sense? I hope so. All right, my loves, those are the 6 decks that I have been using the most this summer. The Starcodes Oracle, the Happy Tarot, the White Newman Tarot, the Starman Tarot, the archetypes, Wild Unknown Archetypes, excuse me, and the Cowgirls and Aliens Oracle. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below anything that you would like to share with me. Really, I just like connecting with you. Let me know what your favorite tarot decks of the summer are. If you make videos and you made a video about this already, I'd love to check it out. If you have comments, questions, thoughts, experiences with any of the decks that I shared today, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences, because I find it so interesting how the experience of a deck is so unique to the individual. Like, I could give you any of these decks and have you work with them, and your experience would be totally different than mine. I mean, sometimes there'd be similars, but I just love talking about the deep things. It's my Scorpio. Okay. I'm going to go. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Oh, one last thing. If you're still here, I am running a really fun, I'm going to call it event in August, in Leanne Aligned. So for those of you that don't know, I don't just have a YouTube channel. Like, I have a whole business. I have readings that I give. I run courses and experiences all the time. I have an Instagram. I have a podcast. Like, this is a whole Leanne Aligned thing that we have going on. And for August, I'm doing what I'm calling an abundant AF August. So I have a lot of free offerings that we're doing. I'm working on really revamping my offerings for the fall. And to go with that, I'm offering some really new, fun, free readings. There's going to be other free resources. I'm going to leave it a little mystical for now. But if you're interested in any of that, check me out on Instagram, join me on my website, or join the email list, because you're not going to want to miss it. All right, my loves, that's it. I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.